What comes to your mind when you hear the word England? Is it London, Big Ben, Harry Potter, or maybe the royal family? But after spending 7 unforgettable days here, I realized England is so much more than the places we see on postcards. Behind the famous landmarks are stories, hidden villages, ancient mysteries, magical movie sets, and moments that no travel guide can ever prepare you for. So I packed my backpack, left my comfort zone behind, and began a journey across one of the most fascinating countries in the world. Over the next 7 days, I'll walk through the real world of Harry Potter, stand in front of the mysterious Stonehenge, wander through villages that seem frozen in time, explore the historic streets of Oxford, see London from a completely different perspective, and meet some of the world's most famous faces, made entirely from wax. This isn't just another travel vlog. This is my journey through England. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Harry Potter. Every great journey begins with a little bit of magic, and for me, there was no better place to start than the world of Harry Potter. Millions of people have watched these movies, but today, I wasn't just watching them. I was about to step inside the place where the magic was actually created. As I entered the studio, it honestly felt like walking into my childhood. Every costume, every wand, every tiny detail had a story behind it. Seeing these original movie sets made me realize something. Great movies aren't made by magic. They're made by thousands of people, years of creativity, and incredible attention to detail. And that made me appreciate the Harry Potter universe even more. But England isn't only about movies. Some of its greatest wonders were built thousands of years before cameras even existed. So the next morning, we left London behind and headed toward one of history's greatest mysteries. Leaving the busy streets of London behind, our journey took a completely different direction. As the city slowly disappeared in the distance, endless green fields, quiet villages, and open countryside began to unfold outside the window. It was peaceful, almost as if time had started moving a little slower. Today's destination wasn't just another tourist attraction. It was one of the oldest and most mysterious places on Earth, Stonehenge. For thousands of years, these massive stones have stood here, watching civilizations rise and fall, silently guarding secrets that no one has been able to fully explain. No matter how many books you read or documentaries you watch, nothing prepares you for the feeling of seeing it with your own eyes. The moment I stepped off the bus, the fresh countryside air felt completely different. The wind was stronger, the silence was deeper, and somehow, the atmosphere itself felt ancient. As I walked closer, the monument slowly revealed itself on the horizon. At first, it looked surprisingly simple, just a circle of enormous stones. But the closer I got, the more unbelievable it became. Each stone weighs several tons, yet somehow, people managed to transport them here over 4,000 years ago. without modern machines, without cranes, without technology. Even today, no one knows exactly how they did it, and that's what makes Stonehenge so fascinating. Some believe it was a place of worship, others think it was an ancient calendar, some even connect it with astronomy or forgotten civilizations. The truth is, no one really knows. Standing there, I realize something. Sometimes the greatest part of traveling isn't finding answers, it's discovering places that leave you with even more questions. As visitors from all over the world quietly walked around the monument, everyone seemed to share the same expression: curiosity, wonder, respect. Because this isn't just a collection of stones, it's a reminder of how incredible human history truly is. I stood there for a few moments, without saying anything, just listening to the wind, watching the clouds drift across the English sky, and appreciating the fact that I was witnessing something that has survived for thousands of years. Some places impress you because they're beautiful. Others stay with you because they make you think. Stonehenge does both. And before I even realized it, it was time to continue the journey, because England still had many more stories waiting to be discovered. After experiencing the mystery of Stonehenge, I thought I had already seen the most beautiful side of England, but I couldn't have been more wrong. Our next destination was a place that looked like it had been forgotten by time, a place where every street, every cottage, and every little corner felt like it belonged inside a storybook. Welcome to the Cotswolds. As our coach slowly entered the countryside, the scenery around us began to change. The busy roads disappeared, the tall buildings faded away, and in their place came endless green fields and stone walls and peaceful villages that had existed for centuries. Everything felt slower here, not because life had stopped, but because nobody seemed to be in a hurry. For the first time in days, I found myself putting the camera down just to enjoy the silence. Walking through the village. The moment I stepped into the village, I understood why people from all over the world fall in love with this place. The streets were incredibly quiet, no traffic, no noise, just the sound of birds, the wind, and footsteps echoing across the old stone pathways. Every house looked unique, built from warm, honey-colored limestone. Many of these cottages have been standing here for hundreds of years, and somehow they still look as beautiful today as they probably did generations ago. Walking through these streets didn't feel like visiting a tourist destination. It felt like walking through history. One thing that immediately caught my attention was how carefully everything had been preserved. The gardens were perfectly maintained, flowers filled the front yards, tiny cafes welcomed visitors with fresh coffee and homemade cakes. Even the smallest details seemed thoughtfully cared for. Nothing felt rushed, nothing felt artificial. Everything felt genuine. And maybe that's exactly what makes the Cotswolds so special. Travel isn't always about famous landmarks. Sometimes the most unforgettable places are the quiet ones, the places that don't try to impress you. They simply exist, exactly as they have for generations. Standing there, watching local life continue at its own peaceful pace, I realized something. Not every destination has to be exciting. Some places simply give your mind a chance to breathe. As we continued walking, every turn revealed another beautiful street, another charming cottage, another hidden corner waiting to be discovered. It almost felt impossible to take a bad photograph here. No matter where I pointed the camera, everything looked cinematic. Every frame felt like a postcard, and every minute made me appreciate slow travel even more. Because when you stop rushing, you start noticing things that most people completely miss. One of the things I enjoy most about traveling is watching everyday life. A local couple walking their dog, children laughing in the distance, an elderly man watering flowers outside his home. Simple moments that remind you, travel isn't only about places, it's about people. and the lives they quietly live long after tourists have gone home. As the afternoon slowly came to an end, it was finally time to leave. I took one last look around, not because I wanted another photograph, but because I wanted to remember how this place made me feel: peaceful, relaxed, present. Some destinations impress you with their size, others impress you with their history, but places like the Cotswolds leave you with something much more valuable, a feeling, and sometimes that's the greatest souvenir you can ever bring home. Our journey through England was far from over, because next we were heading to a city that has inspired some of the greatest minds in history, a place where knowledge, tradition, and centuries of history still live within its streets. Next stop, Oxford. After the peaceful villages of the Cotswolds, our journey took us to a place that feels completely different, a city where history, knowledge, and tradition exist side by side. Oxford. For nearly 1,000 years, students from around the world have come here to learn, dream, and shape their future. And today, I finally got to walk through the streets I had seen so many times in books and movies. The moment I arrived, I noticed something unusual. Oxford doesn't feel like a modern city trying to preserve its history. It feels like history is still alive here. Ancient stone buildings stand beside busy cafes. Students ride bicycles through streets that have existed for centuries. And everywhere you look, there's a sense of quiet ambition. As I walked through the city center, I realized why so many people call Oxford one of the most beautiful cities in England. Every building has character, every street feels cinematic. Even an ordinary walk here feels like stepping into a movie. What surprised me most was how many colleges make up Oxford University. It's not just one campus, it's a collection of historic colleges, each with its own story, architecture, and traditions. Some of these buildings are older than many countries. As I explored further, I kept imagining the people who once walked these same streets: scientists, writers, philosophers, leaders, people whose ideas changed the world, and somehow that thought makes the city feel even more special. One thing I loved about Oxford was the atmosphere. It's busy, but not chaotic. Tourists take photos, students hurry to lectures, street musicians perform in quiet corners, and local cafes are filled with conversations from every part of the world. It feels international, yet deeply traditional at the same time. As we continued walking, beautiful courtyards, old libraries, and historic churches appeared around almost every corner. There were moments when I stopped filming completely, not because there was nothing to record, but because I simply wanted to enjoy being there. Travel has a strange way of teaching you things, sometimes through people, sometimes through experiences, and sometimes through places that quietly remind you how much history exists in the world. Oxford was one of those places. As the afternoon light began to soften, the city looked even more beautiful. Golden stone buildings reflected the sunlight. Bicycles passed by. Church bells echoed in the distance. And for a moment, everything felt timeless. Before leaving, I took one last walk through the historic streets, not to find another landmark, but to remember the feeling of being here, because some cities impress you with their size, some with their attractions, and some, like Oxford, leave you inspired. Our England journey was far from over. Next, it was time to experience the energy of London from a completely different perspective, aboard one of the city's famous open-top buses. Next stop, the London Big Bus Tour. Every city has two different personalities. The first one is the version you see on social media, the famous landmarks, the busy streets, the postcard views. But the second one only reveals itself when you slow down, look around, and simply enjoy Coton. Today, I wanted to see London from a completely different perspective, not underground, not inside a taxi, but from the top deck of London's famous Big Bus Tour. As I arrived at the meeting point, the weather couldn't have been better. A cool breeze, soft sunlight breaking through the clouds, and the kind of atmosphere that makes you want to spend the entire day outside. Honestly, after everything that happened earlier in this trip, I was hoping this tour would finally go according to plan. A few days ago, I actually missed another tour because I misunderstood the meeting point. It was frustrating. Time was lost, money was gone, and I walked away disappointed. But that's part of traveling. Sometimes, the best stories begin with unexpected mistakes. So today felt like a fresh start. When the bright red bus finally arrived, I couldn't help but smile. It's one of those iconic London experiences that you've probably seen countless times in movies. But standing there in person feels completely different. I walked upstairs, found the perfect seat, and within a few moments, our journey across London officially began. London from above. The first thing I noticed was how different the city feels from above. Suddenly, everything becomes easier to appreciate. The architecture, the streets, the parks, the people, even the traffic somehow becomes part of the experience. As the bus slowly moved through London's historic streets, every turn revealed another famous landmark. Some places I'd only ever seen in photographs, others I didn't even know existed. And that's the beauty of exploring a city without rushing. Sometimes the places you weren't expecting become your favorite memories. One thing I really admire about London is how beautifully it balances history and modern life. On one side, you will see buildings that have stood for centuries. On the other, modern skyscrapers reaching into the sky, different generations, different styles, existing together without losing their identity. As we passed through Westminster, seeing Big Ben from the open-top deck felt surreal. No photograph, no video can truly capture how impressive it looks in real life. It's one of those landmarks that instantly reminds you you're actually in London. The streets were full of energy. Tourists, street performers, cyclists, red buses, black taxis, people from every corner of the world sharing the same city, and somehow it all worked perfectly together. One thing I loved during this ride was simply watching everyday life. Someone reading a book in the park, friends laughing outside cafes, families walking along the streets, office workers rushing home. Travel isn't always about famous places. Sometimes it's about observing ordinary moments in an extraordinary city. As we crossed bridges, the views became even more spectacular. The River Thames quietly flowed beneath us. Boats drifted across the water. Historic buildings reflected in the river. And for a few moments, London felt surprisingly peaceful. I realized something while sitting there. Cities are often judged by their attractions, but what really gives them character is their people, their culture, their rhythm, their everyday life. That's something no travel brochure can ever show you. The cool wind, the sounds of the city, the changing skyline, and it all came together to create one unforgettable experience. Sometimes you don't need an expensive adventure or a hidden destination. Sometimes all you need is a different point of view. Reflection. As the tour slowly came to an end, I looked back at everything we had seen, the famous landmarks, the historic streets, the unexpected little moments, and I realized London isn't a city you can fully understand in one day or even 1 week. Every visit reveals something new. Every street has another story waiting to be discovered. But our journey through England still wasn't over, because next, I was about to step inside one of London's most entertaining attractions, a place where history, Hollywood, sports, music, and world-famous personalities all exist under one roof. Next stop, Madame Tussauds, London. There are places you visit because they're historic. There are places you visit because they're beautiful. And then there are places you visit simply because they're fun. Madame Tussauds London is one of those places. For years, I'd seen photos and videos of these famous wax figures online. People always said they look unbelievably real. Honestly, I thought they were exaggerating. Today, I was finally going to find out for myself. As I walked toward the entrance, the excitement was impossible to ignore. Visitors from all over the world, families, friends, solo travelers, everyone seemed just as excited as I was. The atmosphere felt energetic, almost like arriving at a movie premiere. This time, I made sure everything was perfect. No missed meeting points, no confusion, no rushing. After learning from my earlier mistakes during this trip, today felt different. Everything was finally going in according to plan. Luckily, I had booked a fast-track ticket, which meant I could skip the long queues. Watching hundreds of people waiting outside, I was definitely happy with that decision. Within minutes, I was inside. The moment the doors opened, it honestly didn't feel like entering a museum. It felt like walking onto a film set. Beautiful lighting, elegant interiors, music playing softly in the background. Everything was designed to make you feel like a celebrity. And then I saw the first wax figure. For just a second, my brain genuinely believed it was a real person. The level of detail was incredible. Every strand of hair, every wrinkle, every expression, even the texture of the skin looked unbelievably realistic. As I continued walking, more familiar faces appeared around every corner. Hollywood actors, world-famous musicians, legendary athletes, political leaders, historical icons. It felt like traveling through different generations, all inside one building. One thing that really surprised me was how interactive the experience was. Unlike many museums, you're encouraged to get close, take photos, strike funny poses, become part of the experience, and that's exactly what everyone was doing. Some people were pretending to have conversations with their favorite celebrities. Others recreated famous movie scenes. Some couldn't stop laughing. The entire place was filled with positive energy. As someone who loves creating travel content, I couldn't resist joining in, of course. I had to take a few photos myself. After all, how often do you get the chance to stand beside people you've watched on television for years? Even if they're made from wax, the craftsmanship behind every figure is simply remarkable. It's hard to imagine how many hours, or even months, it takes to create just one person. Every tiny detail matters, from the color of the eyes, to the stitching on a jacket, to the smallest facial expression. Nothing feels rushed. Everything feels carefully crafted. Walking through each section, I realize this place isn't really about wax statues, it's about memories. Every figure represents someone who inspired millions of people around the world. Actors who entertained us, athletes who broke records, musicians whose songs became part of our lives, leaders who shaped history. In a way, this museum tells the story of modern culture, one famous face at a time. As I explored further, the experience became even more immersive. Special effects, moving lights, interactive displays, different themed rooms. Each section had its own unique atmosphere. It never felt repetitive. There was always something new waiting around the next corner. One thing I really appreciated was watching people enjoy simple moments together. Parents taking pictures with their children, friends laughing, couples recreating famous movie scenes. Sometimes travel isn't about finding hidden places. Sometimes it's simply about creating happy memories. Before leaving, I took one final look around, not because I wanted another photograph, but because I wanted to appreciate the incredible creativity behind everything I just experienced. Madame Tussauds isn't trying to convince you that wax figures are real. It's reminding you how deeply certain people have influenced our lives. And that's what makes this place so special. As I stepped back outside into the streets of London, the city felt just as alive as before, but our journey was almost coming to an end. Only one final chapter remained. The last day, the last walk, the last goodbye, and sometimes those are the moments we remember the most. Every journey begins with excitement, but eventually every journey reaches its final destination. The question isn't whether the trip ends, the real question is, what memories will you take home with you? Our final chapter begins at the airport. Every journey eventually comes to an end, no matter how incredible it is. There always comes a moment when it's time to pack your bags, take one last look around, and say goodbye. Today was that day. As I packed my backpack one final time, I couldn't help thinking about everything that had happened over the past 7 days. When I first landed in England, everything felt unfamiliar. A new country, a different culture, different people, different weather, and so many places waiting to be explored. Now, it somehow felt familiar, almost like I was leaving behind a place I'd started calling home. This journey wasn't perfect. Some plans didn't work out. I missed a tour. I got lost. The weather changed almost every day. There were moments of frustration, moments when things didn't go the way I expected, but looking back now, those moments became part of the adventure. Sometimes the memories we laugh about later are the ones that felt difficult in the moment. And maybe that's the real beauty of travel. Over the past week, I walked through the magical world of Harry Potter. I stood in front of the mysterious stones of Stonehenge. I wandered through peaceful villages that looked frozen in time. I explored the historic streets of Oxford. I discovered London from the top of an open bus, and I met some of the world's most famous faces at Madame Tussauds. Every destination, it showed me something different. Every place left behind a different feeling. But if there's one thing this journey taught me, it's that travel isn't really about collecting countries. It's not about ticking famous places off a list, and it's definitely not about taking the perfect photo. Travel changes you in small ways that you don't even notice at first. It teaches patience, it teaches curiosity, it reminds you how different people can be, and yet how similar we all really are. One of my favorite parts of this trip wasn't a famous landmark. It wasn't a museum or a historic building. It was simply walking through quiet streets, watching everyday life, listening to different languages, smiling at strangers, drinking coffee in places I'd never been before. Those simple moments are the ones I'll remember the most. As I made my way toward the airport, the excitement of arriving had quietly turned into gratitude. Gratitude for every experience, every challenge, every conversation, every unexpected surprise, and every memory that I'll carry with me long after this trip is over. Travel has a strange way of changing your perspective. You leave home thinking you're going to discover a new country, but somehow you end up discovering something about yourself instead. And I think that's why we keep traveling. Airport check-in, security, walking through the terminal, planes outside the window. Watching the planes outside the terminal, I realized something. Every flight is more than just a journey from one place to another. It's a collection of stories. Every passenger is carrying memories. Some are returning home, some are chasing dreams, some are beginning a brand new adventure. Today, I was taking my memories home with me. As the aircraft slowly prepared for departure, I looked out of the window one last time. The city that had welcomed me, the streets I had walked, the people I had met, The places that had amazed me slowly disappeared beneath the clouds, but the memories stayed with me. Maybe that's what makes travel so special, is places don't stay with us, feelings do. The excitement of discovering something new, the peace of watching a quiet sunset, the laughter shared with strangers, the moments that no camera can truly capture, those are the souvenirs that matter the most. England gave me incredible history, beautiful landscapes, amazing architecture, friendly people, and unforgettable experiences. But more importantly, it reminded me why I started traveling in the first place. Not to escape life, but to experience more of it. This journey may be over, but every ending is simply the beginning of another adventure. Somewhere, another country is waiting, another story is waiting to be told, and another unforgettable journey is about to begin. If you enjoyed traveling through England with me, I hope this documentary inspired you to explore a little more, to stay curious, and to never stop discovering the world. Thank you for being part of this journey. I'll see you in the next adventure. Until then, take care, keep exploring, and never stop chasing new experiences. Goodbye for now.